This is video 3 now of Godel, Escher, Bach, written by Douglas Hofstadter. And as I mentioned, I have been watching videos of a college professor, I still don't know his name, go through his lectures, college courses on the analysis of this book. I'm through lecture 4 now, I believe. And this is the second video that I'm making today. I was going to do this tomorrow, but while this is fresh in my mind, I wanted to go through it today to see if I can explain what now I just saw again in the last couple hours here. He starts out talking about George Cantor, the study of infinity, omega, the one-to-one correspondence that Galileo talked about, how sets twice as big, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on a one-to-one correspondence can equal 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 on a one-to-one correspondence. So this seems to be half as big as this, but on a one-to-one correspondence, they go out into infinity. So we've talked about that, just that there's some infinities larger than others. Some infinities are so large that they make other infinities approach a limit of 0 in size. We've talked about that. So just there's different quantities of infinity, and here's where the interesting part started. He talked about recursion again, and what that is repeating mirror images. Picture two mirrors, both reflecting infinitely into each other. That's what recursion is all about. And they want to apply in this book, Godel, Escher, Bach, GEB, that to reality. And so there's going to be cases of this going forward. And then isomorphisms, again, equivalence between two unrelated things. So this is the creative, artistic understanding of the universe. And again, so we had Godel, which was math, Escher, which is art, and Bach, which was music. And the interrelatedness of these, depicting reality in somewhat of a loop. And this goes both ways. And they stressed in these videos that the importance of this going both ways. And there was a statement made, and I'll see if I can find it, and it's towards the end, and I highlighted it. I was going to finish with this, but I just jumped to it right away. We always think that math describes reality. And if we go back to here, more of this loop, is it reality that's actually describing mathematics? So I thought that was kind of interesting. He talks about 3 different phases of meaning. I didn't catch all that. Frame message, which is kind of like a curiosity and outer message, and then the inner message, which was the real meaning. And meaning has a very important thing in GEB. When you're defining the self, again, GEB ultimately wants to define the self. Who am I? So not only do they want to define mathematics and art and music and analogies and how we understand reality and consciousness, but also what does it mean to have meaning? Again, we talked about meaningless symbols, such as the alphabet A, B, C, D, and so forth, all of the symbols of the letters, and then we can create a word called the self, and that has meaning to us. But even on a metaphysical level, who am I? What is the self? What does that really mean to be a self? I talked about Lewis Carroll poems, which I don't know a lot about. Apparently, they are acrostic, which have hidden meanings built within them. And apparently, in this conversation between Achilles and the tortoise, 10 pages, there were hidden meanings that developed all of these words, and I didn't get them all written down. Hofstadter's acrostic, and all of it ultimately meant J.S. Bach, I guess. I didn't catch all of that, but again, there's these hidden meanings that you have these eureka moments where lightning strikes, and oh, now you understand something that you didn't quite understand before. So made a comment, decode me, going back into this hidden meaning issue. Just plowing along here just to hit some of the major points, and then we'll get to the big summary analysis. So this reminded me of subliminal messaging. They didn't mention this, but I'm throwing in kind of this subliminal messaging that's kind of hidden in various things that we see. Music having patterns. This Achilles tortoise conversation had a hidden meaning. We watch TV and get subliminal messages and so forth. He talks about meaning not being inherent. That meaning is the relationship of other things. And then again, I applied something here that reminded me of Einstein's theory of relativity. We can only give meaning as it relates to something else. Time, space, motion. Einstein proved in our world the theory of relativity. We also, and this is really interesting, now physics transferred to reality and to meaning, that it is relative. So that's kind of interesting, these analogies, these recursions, these isomorphisms, these equivalences, one explaining the other and applying it to the universe and the self and so forth. So that we are viewing the world in a relative manner. This kind of goes back into the yin and yang and so forth. So he talked about thinking about an apple, and then what other thoughts could you have? And I just wrote some down. Apple could be related to Adam and Eve, could relate to God, could relate to apple pie, could it relate to the tree of knowledge, could relate computers, Isaac Newton, and gravity. So thoughts lead to other thoughts. So that was just kind of interesting. He talked about information theory. Oh, before we go to that, Apple being an isomorphism for the brain or the thoughts themselves. Think of an equation, how an equation can depict reality. Well, these brain waves, what if there's a certain pattern of this synapse to that synapse? What if that meant Apple? Scientists that study brain waves and whatever don't have that type of knowledge, but if you did know that knowledge, you would have this form of mind reading going on. Talks about information theory, that information is so important, but also that we expect an outcome. Preconceived notions and bias and so forth leads us somewhere. Galileo was able to use inference when he was in church seeing a pendulum, that then there was a law. There's laws of motion that are universal. So it's not specific to that pendulum, but it applies to everything. So that's like that holistic view of the universe. Talks about reverse engineering. We're able to see the pendulum move or something happen. We reverse engineer it. And this goes back to this two-way forward and backwards understanding, going back in time and then understanding how something works. Talk about algorithmic complexity. Talks about how something complex can come out of something simple. You talk about an equation, a computer program, which may just be a line or two and then can make complex creations. And we'll get into the Conway program of life, which was depicted, and they went through how life is created almost randomly, but not random necessarily, that the surroundings around you allow for this Goldilocks type existence. Everything's perfect to just right to create an existence or extinguish an existence. Talked about a Turing halting program, and this was kind of interesting. A program, this was theorized, I guess, cannot determine itself whether it will terminate or not. So that's kind of interesting, if that's really true or not. Also talked about another program, cellular automation, and what this was, again, going back to this relativity, that those around you affect what you become. So this is, you know, you go to school, you go to, you're programmed all the time by schooling and thoughts and people around you, and you become like them. And they wrote a program that this may kind of be like a random state of the universe of cellular automation or automatons. So then we've talked about what does it really mean to be free or deterministic. This concept of freedom seems very limited when we're constantly being formed and formatted by our relationships to other things and other thoughts and other people. We talked about universal knowledge. Complexity comes out of simplicity. Seth Lloyd again came up, viewing the world as a computer program. And the other TA, I guess, in these videos talked about, is the universe really a computer program? Would that possibly even include the self being a computer program? But he mentioned something interesting about not only quantum mechanics, but referred to it as wave mechanics, and the infinite nature of waves, as opposed to them being discrete, being continuous. And we talked about Zeno's paradox, that we always view these paradoxes not make any sense because we view it discretely. We go from A to B to C, and the Achilles catches the tortoise. But he claims, this teaching assistant, that Zeno's paradoxes are still alive, and the reason for that is not that you're traveling discrete minimum units of allowable perceived reality, but you still have to travel space below it, which is infinite and continuous. So there's no way of getting around Zeno's paradox. So I thought that was really interesting. talked about fractals. The beauty of that, fractals, again, similar to recursion, repeating mirrored images. And he wrote a program where something was straight and then would turn 60 degrees up or down, and you start creating a fractal, and each of these images are copies of these images, and each of these branches are copies of these images. So that's almost kind of like a holistic type view, again, of, and applying this to the universe, of every piece of something, everything being in everything, the Anaxagoras type way of viewing things, the hologram, every piece has the sum of the whole within it, and fractals kind of picture that. And I think this Sierpinski triangle also did that. That was kind of an Escher tiling of triangles. And I think these fractals all building within this an infinite amount within the finite set. And he showed those. Those kind of were neat to see. So again, that's just a quick analysis of the next level of videos that I watched, and I thought it was real interesting that they were really trying to get at the theory of meaning. And when we talk about meaning, they talked about, we could say, what is a 1, what is a 2, what is anything. But then when you talk about what is pi, do we really know? And can you define pi when it's a repeating or an infinite decimal, or the square root of 2? So can you really define something like that and give it meaning? Because they're almost undefinable at their most fundamental or broad sense, and then applying it to the self, the definition of the self, and so forth.